Welcome back to another interview for 𝗀𝗀𝗍𝗂. I'm Lorraine, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Susan Steele. Susan has a remarkable story of transforming a personal struggle into a professional mission. After a long career as a finance manager, she was motivated to leave her corporate life behind to help her own sons overcome their learning and concentration challenges. This personal journey led her to found Performance Breakthrough, a company that provides a movement-based training program. Now she works alongside her son John to help others unlock their potential. Today we'll dive into Susan's inspiring story, learn about her unique program, and explore how she's empowering both children and adults to achieve their goals. Hi, Susan.
Hi.
Welcome to 𝗀𝗀𝗍𝗂.
Thank you so much. And you're saying about my one son, my other son has joined the company in January.
How do you find it working with your sons?
Oh, it's great. It's great. But I wired them early and no teenage problems. We go out for dinner. And
do you find yourselves talking about business while out, or can you break that easy?
We're at the weekend, we say, right, okay, no talk. Unless there's something really, well, there's usually something really exciting going on. But sometimes a wee story will come in, maybe a review or something that John has got from a parent that day, and we'll have a talk about that. But we don't talk strategy, if we're out. But I mean, if we're out for a meeting, we could be in a cafe and go, right, board meeting, and we all meet at the cafe, and we sit and have our lunch and talk, and we get so much done, and then we go off and do our own things. So the three of us are now in it. So.
Oh, that's brilliant.
So just wanted to add that in just at the beginning so everybody knew that both my sons have now joined me. So I'm like a builder's merchant, it's like Susan and Sons.
You'll have to change it up now for Breakthrough Performance and Sons. So we'll start off, first of all, how this all came about.
Right. Okay.
So you had a long career in finance, looking through your LinkedIn profiles and online profiles. So how did you, first of all, come into this realm as such and start Performance Breakthrough? What was the kickoff period?
The kickoff was right. We were called to the school and told that if John, this is first year, right? Now, all through primary school, John was never in the headmaster's office and me with him, right? All low-level stuff, but, parents will know what I'm talking about. It's the mucking about in the class, the sharpening the pencil, all the rest of it. So anyway, that was going on during primary. But of course, everybody always grow out of it. You'll be grand. The time he gets to P4, brilliant. The time he gets to P5, sure, grand. The time he gets to P6 now, a male teacher, sure, that was settling. First year came. And by the end of first year, we were called to the school and told that if John didn't pull his socks up within 2 weeks, he was losing his place in the top class. Now, my lucky stars that the teachers did bring us in and tell us that, because that day I came out in tears, thought to myself, he's not bad, but he just can't conform in a classroom. I'm going to find out why. I immediately went down to the health centre to make an appointment for him, but I was on my way in and I went, that's just going to mean that I get into a system where I'm, going to get a statement or whatever. And I don't even know where to start with all that. So I went back to work and I'm sitting crying, and my colleague asked me, what on earth happened? And I said, and every other word was coming out of my mouth was about low concentration. He can't focus. He's up and around the classroom, blah, 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 blah. And I Googled low concentration, and up came a sponsored ad for a program of balance and coordination. And I phoned the girl and I cried. She cried. She described my child. I asked her, is Pussy eating anything to do with this? Yeah, that could just go with the territory. Right. So I did the evaluation and I signed John up for the program, right? I came home. I went and collected John that day, and I take it, Lorraine, we'd been called to the school. So John thought he was for it whenever I collected him off the bus, right? So he got in the back, actually. There's normally an argument for the front. He got in the back and out of swiping distance, obviously. And I said to him, I think I know what's going on with you. And I think I've found the solution. And he went, right. And he was 12, right? And I says to him, yeah, this is why you've been in the bowl chair since nursery. This could be why you can't get to sleep at night. You can't get up in the morning. You're so disorganized. I'm rabbiting on. You can't eat the same food as everybody else, etc. And I looked, he'd gone quiet, and I looked in the rear view mirror, Lorraine, and there were big tears rolling down his face.
Oh.
And he said to me, would this mean I don't have to feel like this for the rest of my life? Well, that's what they're telling me. It's not medication. It's not injections. It's natural active play. We do it once a day, 15 minutes. And let's see. Let's just see what happens. But I said, it makes sense to me. And the rest of the day, every time we, sort of came towards each other, we hugged and we cried. And he trusted me that I wasn't going to tell him that I'd find something that was going to help him if I didn't think it would. And so that was a Friday. So Saturday morning, I woke up and went, bang. Part of the evaluation that I'd done for John didn't apply to John. And this was the difficulty handwriting, reading, retaining spellings, da-da-da. And I went, or Peter's dyslexia. Because it applied to him. And the low concentration bit and the behaviour bit didn't apply to Peter at all. Mine were two very distinct children, one the other. But Peter had problems. He used to come home, get into the car and start crying at the thought of doing the homework, that involved writing the sentence out of the spellings. And so I realised he was dyslexic, but I went and got him tested. That might come out, you might ask me about the boys again and digressing. But basically, that day that we were called to school and told if he didn't pull his socks up within 2 weeks was the day that I found the programme. I just asked for the answer and it came, and that was it. So then it took me 3 years then to find the original research at Dr. Belgau in Seattle. And I left my job and I went and trained. I went out and seen him and he trained me in what was the Learning Breakthrough Program. But then we started working with sports people. So we realized people didn't want to come under a learning banner. So we changed it to Performance Breakthrough, but that's a big jump ahead. But that's basically why I left my job.
And you seen, once you started training them, did you see a dramatic shift? Did it take a long time or was it instant?
Within weeks.
Oh, really?
Within weeks for John. Now, if you're dyslexic and you're rewiring, for reading, that it takes a bit longer. But for John, I used to chase John around for 2 hours trying to get him to sit down and do the homework every day. The battle, right? We used to say, you'd go out and cut the grass with a pair of scissors if I got you at homework, Within, I think, about 2 weeks of starting the exercises, he was coming in, hanging his blazer up on the banister, not on the floor, right? And going up the stairs. And I go, all right, I'll make the tea then, will I? Because he'd have been into me, do you want a cup of tea? So I was in my office working. Do you want another cup of tea? Anything to not do the homework. All of a sudden and I was making the tea and he wasn't coming out until it was done. And first year Parents' Day was a disaster. Everybody complained about him. Everybody. I mean, you have no idea. And think of how that feels for him and us because he was with us, right? Second year, I'm walking into the school with John and my husband, and the head of junior year is coming towards me. And I'm going, right. Because you don't know what they're going to say. And she's saying, Mrs. Steele, she says, I hope you have a wonderful Parents' Day. She says, because your son has totally turned it around.
Wow.
1 year. Right? 1 year. And then Peter, at the end of the year, he was in P7 when he did the program. So no structured reading, writing or spelling going on with this kid during the time we were doing the program. Plus it was 2 months of summer as well. And I took him back. I got him tested on psychology report. And at 10 and a half years of age, he had an IQ of 121, which is the top 9% of UK for his age. He had the spelling age of a 7-year-old, and reading and comprehension was out of an 8.5-year-old. Right? So that's what I'm saying about the gap. From him starting to do spellings, he didn't move up incrementally. The gap just widens, right? By this stage, he was in P6 whenever I got him tested. So I wanted my proof, Lorraine. I knew he had changed, and you can very easily prove it with a dyslexic, whereas
yes,
Steve, you can't really. You just view it. You just observe and they're happy and stuff. But I took him back to the psychologist anyway, and all of his scores after the year had risen to his chronological age, except spelling. And spelling was 8 months behind. It had been 3.5 years behind. And I had done nothing else with that child. About 3 months into the program, I sent him to a tutor for 6 weeks because he was doing the 11 plus transfer. And I just didn't know whether, anything would work. I didn't know if the program would work. So I just threw everything at him. And the tutor, after 6 weeks, said to me, Susan, I don't need to do anything more with him. Now, your kids are at tutors for years, right? And it still hasn't gone in. 6 weeks, and because I remember her giving him his selection box in November, and he wasn't due to, because she was finishing with him, and she wasn't going to see him again at Christmas. And she says, he's up to everywhere he needs to be. She says, I've never seen a kid go through my dyslexic courses quick. But it was because Peter was now going, right, okay, I get it. I get ''ss''. I get which where goes where, which there goes there. I worked with a 28-year-old, the first guy on my program, way back 15 years ago, and he had been tutored forever and still didn't know which where went where. Until
I'd probably be the same, to be honest.
Because if it doesn't go in, you're taught it and you will be fine. If you don't get it at that point, it's not revisited. You're just supposed to know it. It's not revisited in any debt, So, yeah, so everything had risen to his chronological age, and that was just 1 year. And it was literally just by us rewiring that brain. And, parents used to say to me, how does it work? I don't actually care. All I know is my kids are now wired, and I didn't have any teenage problems because they were wired. They didn't go through those terrible 𝗷𝗍𝗃 boys, and they became great friends as well. I couldn't have left the two of them in the room together whenever they were kids because they'd be living day and night outside of each other. And they now had bought a house together. They lived together, and they both work for me. So that's how much their wiring has enhanced their whole lives, because they seriously could have gone both ways.
Yeah. Oh my Lord. And you mentioned there your youngest had dyslexia. Was he ever tested for dyslexia, or?
He was. I took him that's the psychology report.
Right.
Now the school didn't think he was dyslexic because he was not smart. He was hiding it.
Right.
I remember whispering to the teacher, it's dyslexic. And she was, no, Peter, no. But and then the report came in. I knew the child couldn't read, but he was that smart. I thought, John was a very avid reader, and I thought, you only have the two, and you don't really know what's normal at whatever age, And I thought, what, that's why he'll eventually get, But he was missing words like the, is, in, at. And I'll tell you, it took me about 8 years in this business to realise, because people were coming to me and they were saying the same thing, the problems with these little words, these high frequency words as they're called. He could read words like dinosaur or garage or horse, but he couldn't decipher is, in, at. There has to be a reason for this. And then again, a light bulb moment came, and I went, oh my God, they're visual learners. They can visualise a horse or a garage or a dinosaur. But what's the picture for the? There isn't, or is, or in, or it. All these high frequency words they talk about as if you really should know them by now. We're coming across these all the time, which makes them feel even worse. You look at most of those words, there's no visual from the cause, what, that, there, no visual.
And we always think in pictures as well, don't we?
But they're visual.
Yeah.
Genius visual nerd. That's why they're a lot of dyslexic people are engineers. They're real visual, real detail. They would sit and watch a cog. They like to maps of watches, They like wood, and Peter's brilliant. Peter's a brilliant engineer. He actually went and trained as a surveyor and got it, passes HNC with distinction because he just gets surveying. He could have been an architect. He would have seen the building in his brain and turned it round in 3D before he ever would have put it down on paper, So that's the genius part of it. And the beauty of what we do is we don't take away that genius. We see that children's brains, the part of their brain almost develops too quickly, too well, right? So some children at 3 can rhyme you off every dinosaur that ever lived. They shouldn't be able to do that at 3. That's too much. But it's to the detriment of the basics, right? So we develop the basics and they keep their genius. We don't diminish So Peter didn't lose any of his wonderful engineering genius, but he could then read, write a report. You know, he could get on with the basics and enhance the genius.
So then, him being the engineer, such I see you have an app out.
Yeah.
Perform It Better app. Was he behind the creation?
We all were. We got the idea. See, what had happened was, trying to put out the main program to families, right? I mean, there's a cost, it's a cost to it. It's a lot of commitment. And we felt we weren't getting to adults. Adults wouldn't put the 15 minutes a day in it. They were falling off. So we all had to make a we have to get this out to more people. So we have to make it simpler, shorter, and cheaper. Right? So the beanbag element, the beanbag is part of the main program, but it's the one that everybody has the most difficulty with. It's the exercise. Yeah, sounds weird, but to throw and catch a beanbag, I'll give you a quick demonstration just to illustrate, because if I just talk about it, you'll not, people won't sort of get it. So you can still see me. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So I need you to watch my arms first of all. Okay, so if we give this to a child or an adult indeed, I mean, the adults think it's really funny because I show them what to do, right? And they think, I'll know what to do now. And then they take it and they don't know what to do. So we say, right, okay, so take the beanbag in both hands and throw and catch it. Well, as soon as they go to throw and catch it, if they are all alert, inherently, if they feel anxious, stressed, frustrated, and I don't mean just in that moment, I mean full time, right? They're on alert. Their sensory system it's not regulated, okay? So if they do that, we'll start throwing it really, really tight. I'll go a wee bit stressed, and they go, or a wee bit anxious, the kind of feelings, or the child, they're frustrated, right? So you can see all of this because that is a fight or flight position in the physical. If I was walking through an alleyway at night and a twig broke behind me and I was on my own, you clamp everything to hear whether he, or in this day and age, she, is coming for you, right? Clamp everything. But people can be on that level of alert most of the time. And so it takes very little. Just the thought of, I might drop this beanbag is enough to send them into high alert. Some of them might even throw it towards them to make sure they don't drop it, because they would see the drop as a fear. And they're fed up feeling. By the time they get to P5, they're fed up feeling, no matter who we are, okay? So they'll either do that, or they'll do, you say, relax your arms out a wee bit. They'll do that. Not one of the, there should be just a little gap, okay? Or they'll throw it from the shoulders. Now this is all significant, because if you look at my elbows, they're not hinging. I'm hinging from my shoulders. You see that? They're not actually hinging, right? And we're not hinging there either. They're clamped to what we know we have, which is our torso. Now, again, one day it came to me what was going on here, because a child was throwing the beanbag across. They would hand it behind their back. And they couldn't pass it until we could see it. Right, okay. That has implications for the elbow, because if you try and see your elbow point from where you are, you can't. So if you're a visual learner and you can't see how your elbow works, you don't know you have one or two. So therefore you clamp it to what you know you have, and this is where tightness comes from, okay? So if they're tight in their physical, you're tight in your mental. So things don't process. Slow processing, that all leads to slow processing. Someone asks you a question, you get the first bit, you miss the middle bit, because you're still processing what's been said, and then you don't know what you're supposed to be doing. Okay, so all of that slows everything down, because all these muscles are being used for that. Okay, then we come to the eyes. Now, so forget about the arms now. I'm all nice and relaxed. Okay, so you come to the eyes and you ask someone to wash that beanbag all the way up and all the way down. Now, if someone looks at that beanbag and their eyes are up and then they throw it, so the eyes are up and then they throw it, that's someone who always wants to be on to the next thing. What's next, what's next, what's next. They can't focus on the task in hand, right? Sometimes they can't get started to, okay? Because they're always thinking, right, what am I making for dinner? Whatever, okay? if they look at that beanbag and they start it off and you think, oh, this is brilliant because they're watching it and they watch it, their eyes stop short. Okay. So they watch it up and their eyes stop short. That's someone who's brilliant ideas for loads of different things. They never finish it. The eyes have not the ability to finish out and watch it anymore. See? So we're at the minute trying to get we're working on it now to get this as a diagnostic, because you can see plainly what's going on. I mean, if I have one child come to us and they do the first one where the eyes are already up, I go, right, he can't settle to anything. He's always wanting to be on the next thing. And the mother go, yeah. So maybe the twin gets on and he'll do the opposite one. I go, right, well, he's great ideas for stuff, but he can't get anything finished. And I go, you could tell all that from a beanbag. Well, you see it yourself. You can't just watch it. So that's what we're working on at the minute.
In the app then, so you say there's 2 programs. You have the main program and then the app. So what's the difference between both programs?
So for children who are under really primary school age, we do like to do the whole program. Okay. Maybe I should start with the app. The app is 2 minutes. You get an email every morning and you get whatever exercise you have to do that morning. But for a primary school child to take that up and just run with it, you need the parental guidance in there. Okay. For a teenager who, say a teenager doesn't want to come out of their room, the app is brilliant because they don't need their parents to be there. They maybe need their parents to say, right, listen, did you do your app today? And I mean, that's normal. Look, that's anything. That's homework, anything, right? But for someone who doesn't want to come out of their room, they can just press the link and do it. 2 minutes and it's done, right? They don't need anybody else there. And for the adult who's going out to work or whatever, I used to say to people, put your kettle on in the morning. And when you put your kettle on, press the link at the same time. And by the time the kettle's boiled, you've your app done. Because it only takes 2 minutes. It takes 2 minutes to boil the kettle.
That's the commitment, just 2 minutes.
That's it, 2 minutes a day. So for an adult or a teenager, that's what they want. They don't want this 15 minutes. So for the children who are primary school, and also the fact that, adults and teenagers are looking for more concentration and being able to get anxiety or frustration out of themselves. If they're a bit annoyed by socks or whatever, well, they've coped with that and they've found ways around that. But they really need their concentration and their frustration levels or anxiety levels and stress levels can really hamper them in their work. Or a teenager getting a job. Okay. So really, if we sort that out for adults, that's all really they need. Okay. Now, in saying that, some of my adults who are on the app have now said, no, Susan, I feel I need, maybe they're OCD or whatever, and they just feel that they need more. And so therefore they've started the program. But, the Beanbag app will do a lot for them. Okay. And it's $11.99 a month.
Do you get the Beanbag with the app or do you just buy a regular beanbag?
No. Oh, God, no. We have our own beanbags. So they're a lovely feel, right? We have sourced beanbags for like 15 years. They were a lovely feel because a lot of people are tactile. And it's a lovely, I don't know whether you can hear this on camera or not.
No. There's seeds or something in it?
Big as like rice pizza, but it's not a big loud noise. Some of them have like marbles nearly in them and they're hard to catch and everything. We just find these that we love our beanbags armed. We just like the feel of them, but we like the sound of them because for the auditory system, we're training the auditory as well to be able to not have those big shock loud noises. And some kids can hear more of what's going on in the corridor than they do in the classroom, and so their hearing isn't synced properly. And so this helps the auditory to sync as well. It does an awful lot more than frustration and behaviour, but if we just go on those two, it keeps it simple for people and go, yeah, do you know what, my focus is shot, so I need to improve that, and this will do it. And then we do the eye exercise as well. We have the eye exercise as well. I will give you, I'll let people heard that we weren't doing it. So then the main program is a balance board. It was the Belgau balance board. It was devised by Dr. Belgau, and it's developing the vestibular, which is the balance sense. which is the sense that is underdeveloped at 5 months in the womb. We can all do a wee bit of balance. But I mean, working with the two eyes and the two arms is working with your vestibular as well. So we're developing the vestibular, but some people need more than others. So therefore we have a balance board that is adjustable, that adjusts the rockers throughout the year to make it more challenging as we go through. So we very gradually develop and underdevelop the vestibular. You're doing the beanbag while standing on the balance board. You also then have a pendulum ball. There's an introductory video on the website that shows me talking about all of this, but you have a pendulum ball. So that's for timing, rhythm. Again, it's for timing and speech, finding the gap in speech and not talking on until someone's going, seriously, And so it's all of that, spatial awareness. It's for sport. We also then have bouncy balls. So you're throwing bouncy balls off a toss backboard. It's a bit of fun, and we all, I'm doing that because we eventually have to do 2 balls at the same time. Yeah, and that's pretty much it.
If we go back to who this program's for, is that now everybody's concerned with, or they seem to always want a label. It's all about the label.
Yeah.
So you mentioned dyslexia, that it's for dyslexia. What about autism and, areas like that there? We're seeing more and more of that there in our schools. And should this be introduced maybe earlier, or, how do you see that?
Going forward, yes. I mean, if you imagine the child who's dyslexic, if you say the child who's dyslexic and a child who's ADHD, both have problems with their eyes.
Okay.
Right? Because the child with ADHD will be the one who's on to the next thing. They can't stay focused on anything. It's the whole root of ADHD. They can't concentrate, right? There's other things, but that's the main one, right? And they're also fidgeting, they're moving all the time, and that's the vestibular. So you get the two eyes working in coherence with each other, you balance them. So therefore they stop having to move. Unnecessary. I don't mean most of them don't move an eye anyway, but I mean that they can move when they're supposed to move, and they can sit still and concentrate and look, okay, when they're supposed to look. So that's the eyes with the kid who say ADD or ADHD or whatever, right? The eyes, 85% of what we take in is through our eyes, Lorraine. So it encompasses everybody, really. The dyslexic person, if they can't follow something smoothly, if you even try, if anybody tries this from, with anybody they think has difficulty reading or concentrating, if you just put your finger in front of them about maybe, 8 inches away from their face, I still look at inches, I'm old, and do that, their eyes won't move smoothly with the object that you're moving. Pick something very small, maybe sweet or something, maybe, or, I used to use a socket for a phone in the office because the wee boys would all be, oh, look at the wee gold teeth inside that. Something's a bit interesting, But if they have difficulty, if they're always wanting to be on the next thing, they'll get to here and their eyes will already be over here. And you're here, but their eyes are already looking over there, and you have to go, no, round, find it again, he finds it again, and then you maybe jump on ahead again, right? Or, and I can't do this next one because my eyes don't do it, but you'll be moving a lot, and when you get to here, there'll be a wee kick back, kick, because the muscles are going. It's a bit like a weightlifter lifting the weight, and he's waiting on the boy press the buzzer, so he's done that for long. His arms start to shake, right? So these muscles start going, I can't. Oh. Now you get to the other side of it. I can't. Right? So we have to strengthen up those muscles. And once we strengthen up those muscles, and the child who has difficulty reading a page of writing will be able to focus, and most importantly, take in what they're reading. Because the eyes are no longer sending messages back to the brain to go, I can't. Because if the brain's doing that, well, there's no room for, what was this actually about? Right? You can't read a page of writing. You'll have difficulty reading social cues, perhaps. Reading a field of sport. So anybody that we worked with their concentration in the classroom has improved in sport as a byproduct. So we started working with people in sport, and their concentration in work started improving as a byproduct, right? And so the eyes are everything. And then for someone who maybe has autism, again, maybe social cues can be difficult. Saying that, I know all about dinosaurs, but I know Granny doesn't like me talking about dinosaurs because she doesn't really get it. She's not really into. So I'll not talk to Granny about dinosaurs. I'll wait until Mark comes in because he loves dinosaurs too. It's being able to have that cognitive thought process of, I'll leave her out, but I'll get him when he comes in because we can have a really good chat together. Reading that situation, you know, it's all about reading. Okay. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does. Like, it's mind-boggling. And it's like getting people off the medication that they're given and into something that actually has been proven to work.
But this is the problem, Lorraine. I think this is the problem out there. Everybody is being driven towards the statement that I'm me, right? And listen, if a child comes to us and they're on medication, we don't need a diagnosis. We can do it ourselves, right? We don't diagnose as such. Eventually we will. But at the minute, we can just see it. We can do it through observation, right? And we've seen enough of it that nothing surprises us anymore. But parents are driven, and from whatever source, they're driven towards these statements and IEPs. And everybody thinks this is the answer. This is the be-all and end-all. Because they'll get their statement and they'll get the help that they need in school. And yes, you know, all the provision is made in school. But the problem is that there's children coming out at 5th year who've had interventions since P2, P3, and they still can't read. And they're still frustrated. They're still anxious. But now they're coming out into the workplace. And all the tutoring and all the extra this and extra that and the counselling, and the child still hasn't been wired. Because, can I touch on that about the wiring, Lorraine?
Yes, go for it.
Because what we have observed over the last 15 years, this is me and my boys. I mean, my boys were there was kids, so they're now out the other end. They know exactly what's, and this is why they work with them, because they know what it's like to be that child. So we're rewiring the brain. I mean, neuroplasticity is the science behind it. We all know that the brain can change, right? So what we see is that it's as if the wiring has been set the wrong way round in some areas of the brain. Okay? So for Peter, it was that B's and D's would go around the wrong way. Right? His numbers were fine, brilliant advanced. B's and D's would go round the wrong way. He would see those the wrong way around. That's very common for a lot of people, right? For John, with ADD, stroke ADHD, his consequences were round the wrong way. So he couldn't think before he acted, which got him into trouble. Couldn't think before he spoke. So no filter. Right? Now, that's enough to get a child into a lot of trouble. Just those two wires around the wrong way. They're not missing, they're just switched. Right? For children who, and I mean, this can be an autistic trait, but I mean, a number of children who would be dyslexic would have this one as well. All right, look, it crosses over. They all cross over, okay? So for a child who is annoyed by, say, socks, right? When your skin, the receptors in your skin are supposed to be set at a certain depth so that you're not aware of your clothes on your back. You're not aware of your socks on your feet, right? But some children are really annoyed by that soft touch, right? Yet they could fall off their bike. I mean, one parent said to me, yeah, she says to Johnny, she says he was sitting at the table, and this is about 2 days after he'd fallen off his bike. And she says, I noticed his arm was a bit misshapen. Right? His arm had broke 2 days earlier. Johnny never said a word about it. But Johnny couldn't wear socks.
Oh my gosh.
No. I find this one the most fascinating of all ours. I mean, we take a lot of what we do for granted because we see it all the time improving. But his receptors were switched the wrong way around. So the big impact didn't impact him at all. He didn't feel it. But the socks he felt. Right? Now, your sense of touch on the skin is related to your sense of feeling, your feelings. Right? Your feelings are your emotions. So whatever's happening in the physical sense of touch is having an impact on what's happening in the mental, which is your emotions. So Johnny would have cracked up over the tiny little thing that his brother maybe took a bit of Lego. But a pet or a relative could have died. Depending on his age, he might have reacted in a way that he thought was appropriate because saw everybody else crying. But there'd have been no actual feeling of emotion of Shep's dead or whatever, you know? So switched the wrong way Right. So the program literally rewires. It grows new pathways as well, but it rewires and switches on these the right way around. So all of a sudden the B's and D's stop switching. The consequences are there, so they start thinking before they act and going, you know what, I better not do that because mum cracked it the last time. Right? And socks stop annoying them. So they stop having the 20 minutes in the morning where they won't put socks on, which is a nightmare because it's hard enough getting out in the morning, let's face it. And they can feel empathy for someone else.
And that's just by getting them to focus.
Focused. And, you know, with the pendulum ball, for instance, this is why when there's more going on with the child, we need the whole program. Because the pendulum ball, we're hitting the pendulum ball, say, the fingertips. Well, there's more sensors in the fingertips than there are in the rest of the hand. And that's your regulator, okay, for your skin. Okay. So some kids start off now whacking that ball, you know, and at 3 months in, if the handwriting hasn't changed and they're still going boogaloo over the little thing, we're going, is he or she hitting that ball too hard still? And the mother will inevitably turn the child, aren't I always telling you you're hitting that ball too hard? So then we support them. So we gauge them then as to how to judge, you know, how hard to hit it and everything. And see once they're hitting that ball and that ball's not flying everywhere, it's a nice pendulum swing and it's all calm. The sensors, the receptors in the skin start changing and they stop being annoyed by clothes and they can just wear anything. And
this is the full program.
Yeah.
How would the parents deliver the full program? Do you like give them instructions to do it and then they get the equipment and then
we supply the equipment, you know, a manual. We say, right, as soon as you receive the kit, text us and we'll get on a video call. So we can all call like this and we can see the child on the balance board and we go through beanbag and bouncy ball with them because we know they're not going to get the pendulum ball hung straight away. Do you know what I mean? Maybe 3 days later say, right, text us when the ball's up. And we'll get on another call and we'll go through the pendulum ball exercises with you. And then we're in touch with them again then a few days later. So that's the end of 1 week. And then we see them at the end of another 2 weeks. And then it's up to them. We usually gauge it that we'll see them at least once a month. Some parents I see once a fortnight, you know, depending on how much support they need. But the bottom line is, Lorraine, we are not like, you know, the NHS where, you know, you have to wait on a letter coming out, right? And we don't say, right, well, I'll not see you till the 15th of October and no deviation on that. I mean, parents sometimes will send us a video of their child doing something, or they'll say, here, send us a wee video of this exercise because I'm not quite getting. And we just send back a fixed video. That's in between appointments. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We want them to do that. We don't want them sitting on a problem for a month, you know? The quicker we can get that problem solved for them and the child starts, you know. So usually within the first week to 2 weeks, in fact, always within the first 2 weeks, sometimes at the call the first week, sometimes on the pendulum ball call, 3 days after they've started, I say, you noticed anything? And they go, do you know, they got up and put their dishes in the dishwasher. That's thought.
every mother's dream.
That's thought. Every mother's dream. That's thought. The child didn't have to be told. They went, do you know what? I'll just get up. So barriers come down, you know. Can you see how this makes a difference, Lorraine, for the whole family? This isn't just about the kid doing it.
That's what I mean. Is it maybe advisable that the whole family actually do it as a family?
They can, and some of them do it. It doesn't cost any more. It's per family.
And then how long does it roughly take?
A year. We do it for a year. It doesn't take a year to get everything in place. We do it for a year because it takes, now it's not an exact science, but it takes roughly about 3 months to hardwire a new connection, or whether it's been switched around the right way, right? So if, say, a parent said, oh, do you know what, they're reading now and that's great, but they'd only just started reading properly. See if she stopped then, see if the kid stopped then, they would go back. Could we have hardwired it? This is where an awful lot of stuff is given for 6 weeks. OT, speech therapy, all given for 6 weeks. Doesn't hold. Hardwired. That's right, parents have to keep going back and back and back and on and on and on it goes. We sort it out and get it sorted. So we hardwire. So that's a year is 4 sessions of hardwiring. That's a lot of hardwiring for the brain. Okay. And I mean, parents say, but does it hold? And well, the first child I worked with, I'd finished with her in the first year, end of first year. And I said, listen, I don't know how this goes because I'm only learning as well, or my kids are only young. And I said, look, I'd take it that you'll not have to do this again, but just keep the board anyway. In 5th year, you might find that, before her GCSEs, whatever, she gets on the board. So that's okay. So fast forward 4 years, right? Now I get a phone call from the mother. Well, she says, when you hear this kid could not read in primary school at all. In fact, she was put into the 4th class down, which were children who their first language wasn't English. I'll say per her English was. This was in here in Northern Ireland. And so she got a B in her English and it was passed. So she got enough to go on and then do A levels, blah, blah. But I said to the mother when she phoned me, I said, here, did you use the board again? She said, it was in the attic. And we kept thinking, God, don't really get that down. And I went, no, that's brilliant, because she got those results and never had to use the board again. So I wanted to see it for myself.
Yes.
It's all very well Dr. Belgau saying, oh no, it'll bold, he was a scientist, that's fine. I wanted to see the proof of the pudding myself, and it held.
And then would you get the same results from the app, or would you really need to go into the full program?
It depends what you're looking for. If you're only looking for concentration to be increased, absolutely the app will do it. The Beanbag will do it. If you're looking to get out of that fight or flight, that terrible, the whole dysregulation, absolutely, the Beanbag will do it. Okay. If there's sensory issues going on, fussy eating, even getting to sleep at night, the app should do it. Okay. As I say, it does more than we're saying, but we just want to keep it tight, but there's a lot of benefits to it. But if you're looking for sensory, that likes the clothes, the whole sensory regulation, what else? The eating, trying to think what else. But it's mainly for primary school children that need the help with their parents, And equally, if you have a couple of children in the house and the different things going on, just do the whole program and it just equalizes everything. Yeah, it regulates everything that it should. It doesn't diminish anything. The medication can make them, they can't sleep, can't eat. They just feel depressed all the time or suppressed. This doesn't do any of that. This just enhances. So,
and the app, is it also for a year?
Yeah.
Right. So any hardwiring as such, we need to do it for a year.
Yeah, we do. We really do, just to make sure that it holds and that you don't, because you don't want to slip back and then have to go back on it again once you're done. Because it's not easy, Noreen. You sort of think 2 minutes a day. It's not easy because it's focused mindfulness. It's having to shut your brain down to just focus on a beanbag. And, you think, oh, how difficult is that? But we're all busy. Do you know what I mean? And so you have to actually make this decision, right? I need to shut my brain down. It's not even shutting it down. It's phoning it in. But see, if you do that, and see, before I would do, I'm writing volumes of books at the minute, actually, about the program. My first one is Why Can't My Child Sit Still? But see, before I sit down to do that, I'll just sit and just watch that. I'm doing maybe 20 throws. And I think of nothing else when that being bad.
So that clears the head.
And
then, so we've talked a lot about schools.
Yeah.
Is there a way that we can get this into schools, or even community groups? There's the various groups out there that would do focus for autism or ADHD. Is there a way that you go out into the community and teach people this, or even people in corporate?
Well, what we're doing at the minute, we've only just literally launched this app. We had a prototype, we launched it, and we've only just gotten in now. So yes, we would love to go into corporate. We're in talks about education. My dream would be that every P3 child would do the 2 minutes every morning in school.
Yeah, because it's only 2 minutes.
2 minutes. We used to say prayers. So if only 2 minutes, and if every child in the class, with our support, so we would just start and then, employ more people. And we want to do it from a sporting aspect, right? Because that's the leveler in the classroom. We don't want to make it that the children who are always having to get extra this, extra that in the classroom assistant, they're targeted again, and the high flyers are let. Because let's face it, see the wee ones that are getting the A stars and the A's and all the rest of it, They could be like that because they're dying off in case they get one wrong in their spelling. That's not healthy either. That's not mental health, right? So we maintain that we work with everybody. And you might find that your child who's getting the A's might not be able to catch that beanbag at all. The kid who's always the bottom of the class and can't read and can't write is always in trouble might just be able to catch it. So all of a sudden, there's that child's confidence coming up, and the kid that's getting the A star won't be so hit with the fact that, I dropped it, you'll just go, I dropped it, and go on. So we're leveling out the confidence levels in the classroom by working with absolutely everybody, And we have the app that we can put it on the white screen or whatever, and everybody just stands and does it. And we would screen the children as well, obviously. So we would know who's having difficulty with it, and then we'd take them out in groups, but all together, just take groups, and everybody comes out to us, and within, a couple of weeks, we would get them all with their arms moving properly. It might take longer to get them, watching it, but we would know who's coming on, who's not, and be able to monitor all of that. So we would pick P3s because people are starting to recognise that the game's not straight for them, that they're not quite, they're falling behind slightly. But we haven't let them go too far that their confidence is totally on the deck, So it just means those P3s then are wired. They go up to P4, P5, P6, P7, first year. They've been wired. The P2s come up to P3s, we work with them again. P2s come up to P3s, we work with them again. So within sort of, 10 years, kids through school that are wired.
So I know you're based in Northern Ireland and the podcast is global. You said about going out to the school. Does that mean that you have to physically go out to school, or is there something that can be done online?
At the minute we would, but once we get into the first set of skills, then we'll work the prototype, because we're working with AI as well. We're actually working with an AI company through University of Ulster and Queen's University here in Belfast. So we'll be able to scan the children, scan that movement in.
Right.
Scan the eyes that they're up before, through triangulation, etc. So we're working with all of that so that we'll be able to send out then a program that schools can monitor their own children. They'll be able to map themselves. So then it can go worldwide. We at the minute work all over the world with our fans because it's Zoom. As long as we have the time zones in, Zoom or Teams or WhatsApp video even works with a lot of families in New York or in America in general because of the Belgau balance board. People in New York know about, or it's in New York. We do have a family in New York, but a lot of people know about the Belgau story. So we get a lot of inquiries from the US, and it works just as I'm talking to you now.
I think it's so invaluable, and especially now, I know in corporate people are trying to have certain mental health aspects, and if companies could provide that app to their,
absolutely,
even before you go into me.
Yeah, is one of our big areas because, it costs companies an absolute fortune to interview someone, take them on and train them. And these people are really, really intelligent. So they do a really good interview. They're wonderful, but they can't hold it together. And by 3 months, 4 months in, maybe a file's gone under a desk that can't do that. And it stays there for 6 months and looking at it. And they're maybe coming in late. And there's days off. And then maybe they have a child themselves at home that has problems and they've been called from the school and told they have to go and collect them. And the other staff are starting to get touchy, going, there he's away again. Or there she's again. Or whatever. You can see. And then you can't just get rid of someone anymore. You have to go through the whole shinbat to get rid of them. But they were brilliant. And they are brilliant. But they can't hold it together. And then the next time they do the interviews, they're going, well, he was brilliant as well. She was brilliant as well. But are they going to fall apart in 6 months? See? So from a corporate point of view, yeah, absolutely. This would be very easily implemented. And I mean, their staff could do it at home. They don't even have to give
That's what I mean.
Or they could do it at home. So yes, so if any employers are out there thinking that's exactly what I need for my mental health program, yes.
Yeah, I think it's so invaluable, and like you bring up so much points. And just to touch on the full program, have you brief price point on it?
Well, the whole program, including the equipment for the year, is £1,900, and that's for the family.
Okay. But it's a small price to pay.
Absolutely. Well, I paid double that actually because I was charged twice. I was charged for each child. But anyway, that's another story. So I realised that, you know, the person who's dyslexic and the person who's ADHD, the same exercises apply. Because you're working with eyes. Everything we're doing is working with the eyes.
And then you mentioned your book. When's it out?
Not out yet, but we're doing maybe a volume of 10 books, and it's all like, you know, why can't my child sit still? Why is my child a fussy eater? And it's just going through why and what's the background to it and what you can do about it. And then I'm going to start with sport, because I mean, I could easily write a book on how this works for someone who's a footballer, a rugby player, a cricketer, and a show jumper, horse rider.
Okay, so we never really touched on that. What's so prevalent in sport?
In sport, because you need good hand-eye coordination. Say tennis, right? You need foot-eye coordination for football. Hand-eye coordination comes into every sport, really. Swimming, whenever you're swimming, right, you're doing one thing with one arm, one thing with the other, and you're doing something totally different with feet.
Yeah, my brain does not get that at all.
Right. So if you're standing on a balance board, or even standing on your 2 feet, just doing the beanbag up, doing something with your feet that you're not doing with your hands, right? So something different going on with your feet, right? And if you're, say, hitting the pendulum ball one hand then the other, well, what position is that? What movement is that? That's swimming, right? Plus your eyes, plus your brain is regulating your whole system, so therefore it's easier to breathe. So your breathing comes into timing and rhythm, because you need to be able to, you know, as getting all that coordination going, that it's automatic. A footballer needs to be able, I mean, there's no way a footballer can stand on that pitch and the ball sail in and then go, right, I wonder where my foot needs to be in order to connect with that. You haven't got time for that thought process. It has to be automatic, right? Plus he needs to be able to judge. We use the analogy of Steven Gerrard because we all support Liverpool, right? So Steven Gerrard, he was born with these attributes, right? But they can be trained. So he would have been sailing up the right flank and kicking a ball across field to a player. Now, if he was on his game, we all watch football, right? So if he kicks that ball and it ends up 10 yards behind the player that he's aiming for, that striker has to run back, right? And by that time he's run back, all the defenders are on him. So he needs to be able to judge it to put it 10 yards in front of the player. And if he's really on his point that day, he'll hit it so that that other player doesn't have to break his stride in order to hit. Now, those calculations are not thought processes. Those calculations have to be made in the brain in order to send the signal for Steven Gerrard to go, right, bang, now. Get the trajectory right, so that's foot-eye coordination, the judgment of how much force he's to put through that ball to get it to that guy so it doesn't fall short and the defenders are on him, and the timing of his run. Bang, That's your Messi, your Steven Gerrard, your Ronaldo's, your, you know, baseball's the same. Basketball, any of those sports, it's all timing, rhythm, judgment of force. And that's exactly what you're doing with that pendulum ball. Judgment of force is off, that ball's going to hit the ceiling and come back and smack the kid in the face. Well, no pain, no gain. They'll not do it again. So, sorry, it sounds callous, but let's face it, they'll not do it again. They'll bring it down a bit, right? But they regulate that. They regulate their force. They're watching the ball as it sails. The ball is a pendulum, so it will always go swing as much one way as it does. It's calming. And when they get that regulated, their central nervous system regulates. But they have hand-eye coordination, foot-eye coordination, timing, rhythm, spatial awareness, reaction, speed, slow reactions. You have to be able to react in the moment. Okay? So any child that we've ever worked with or adult that we've ever worked with for their concentration in classroom, workplace, whatever, improves the sport. Their golf would improve, their football would improve. They're just able to read the game better.
Okay, because I have to do a half marathon now in 2 weeks. Maybe I should start this ASAP.
Well, at least do the eye exercise.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to get on that.
Yeah.
Right, so we've covered your books are coming out. Have we got an ETA for the book?
No.
Okay. And we have the app out. It's out now. People can download it now.
Yes. So it's not an Apple app. It's called a web app. So it's a link.
Right.
Okay. So I can give you the link, I suppose.
I can put the link in to your business profile so everybody will have it. So that's no problem. So we'll add that there so everybody can download that. And it's actually probably easier than an app because then you don't have to update it every 2 seconds.
It's all updated. It's all there. So it says it very easy. Yeah. And people would literally just get an email every morning at 8 o'clock, whatever time zone you're in. You don't have to do it at 8 o'clock in the morning. You get it through at 8 o'clock in the morning. And you click on it. My son, John, has done all the videos professionally for it. And so the first day of the week, so if you take it that each week is a different exercise. Okay. So the first day, might be that, right? And you wouldn't be watching it the first week or the first few weeks, you're only worrying about the arms. But then it could be the next week you're doing this. You're trying to watch it, So each week is something different. So the first day, he tells you what you're doing and why you're doing it. But then the rest of the week, he doesn't speak to you. He don't want people, people with ADHD don't want to be going, you already told us what we're doing, John, just get on with it. So he comes on and does the exercise with you, just to remind you he's standing doing it with you. Okay.
Oh, right. Okay.
So, and then you just mark it as complete. You moved on to the next day. A big thing that I made sure was built into the app whenever we were designing it was that you never fall behind. So if you don't do it for 3 days, there's nothing shouting at you.
Right. Because that puts pressure on you.
If people are too overwhelmed as it is, you need to do everything to not overwhelm them. So you start off on Thursday again, you pick up from where you left off. Nobody gives off. Should you for 3 weeks? It's up to you. Nobody's going to shout at you. Okay? And because whenever you get that, you're 5 days now behind, people will just go, what's doing fun?
Yeah.
I failed again. It just brings on all that negativity, So your reminder is that you get it every morning. Okay? It's not that we just leave you to it. Your reminder's in there every morning and just, your next exercise. And as I say, it doesn't show.
Perfect. So final question, what do you see for the next 5 to 10 years for Performance Breakthrough?
What I would love to see and what I have in my head is that we are in education. Because if I can get that fine veneer of children being able to concentrate, not be worried about going to school, not be worried about exam result overnight. I mean, we all need a wee bit of worry. Don't get me wrong. I don't make them flatline. But, if I can get more focused, more organized children, less stressed, anxious and frustrated children, and better behaved children, basically, because if they're focused and not frustrated, they're going to be better behaved. Because they're not choosing to be bold. They don't get up in the morning and go, whose day can I wreck today? So if I can get that thin veneer across the education system, then if someone needs a bit more, well then we're here. And maybe they only need the pendulum ball and the balance board. We can do all sorts of things with the main program. But if we could get society, and I'm starting in Northern Ireland, but if we can get society from P3 working up, you see that within, 10 years, you have every child in those schools has been through the program. Right? So, and that's massive. I would like to have all my books written, but that would be within the next year. What else are we at? Well, the AI will be massive, and AI is massive. And I mean, we're at the cutting edge of it and we're already in there and doing it and building the prototype that will be able to be used as a scanner. And then eventually we want that people have it on their phones that they can scan themselves. Just like you take a video of yourself.
Oh.
You can scan yourself, get a report, because I will have the AI trained, because like that, I know what that means when they first, right? So if a child or an adult is doing that, then the AI will write a report and say, okay, this person's eyes were up before, so this equals, these are the traits we may have. And they'll be able to go, yes, no, yes.
And then tailor the program.
And then, of course, as they go on with the app, so this will be within the app. And they'll be every month, they'll do it again. And the AI will recognize, they don't have to see it themselves, they'll recognize that, hey, you're actually watching that. Oh, no. that right report. This is improved, and it'll give them what it's improved scientifically. You know, you should by now be feeling that you're more organised, less late for things. Whatever their evaluation showed in the first place, the AI will interpret that and be able to show. You know, so it means that people can actually stay in real time and go, I actually never even thought of that. You know, whereas they would always have been late, no matter what they did, always at 5 or 10 minutes late. You know,
Yeah, it's a progression report.
To be able to write the report, you know, which would be massive.
If a school wants to get you in now, they can they or no? So if a school's watching this and they want to bring you in?
If they did want to bring us in, absolutely they can. And, you know, it's going to be easier for us once we have the AI up and running, you know, but we could certainly give them something to start them off, you know, whether it be the AI exercise or whatever, you know, we could certainly give them some tips even of how they can start the children getting wired, you know. And honestly, Lorraine, I want to get my ducks in order as far as getting the data, you know, so that we know, right, and then we can go, right, okay, this is where we are and this is what's going to do for you. I mean, I can tell them all that, but people like to see the data, you know.
That's it.
I want to see the data. So we're in the middle of that at the minute. So,
and what's your AI timeline?
AI timeline, well, they're probably looking at January.
So that's just around the corner.
Yeah, January to do the, you know, a 3-monther. You know,
yes, that's January.
To get that 3-monther, that will be able to prove concept and everything. And to say, you know, Dr. Belgau spent 40 years of his life during this program, putting this program together, but didn't do data collection.
Well, I suppose we didn't really know how important data was. We knew that back then as well. We know how important data is now.
So this is my first chance now. I mean, I'm the only one in the world doing this the way we're doing it. So I picked up it was like receiving the Olympic torch, I have to say, from Dr. Belgau, because whenever I went into his house, him and his wife were there, a little tiny man who's in his 80s, and he took my face in his hands and said, "You're helping a lot of people," because I'd already started taking on guinea pigs. And I took his face in my hands and said, "But you saved my son's life." Because if I handed him in, we often would sit and say, "Mom, where would we have ended up if you hadn't found that read?" You know, because Peter could not read. IQ of 121, he could not read. And it wasn't that I didn't read to him, you know, didn't read. He would get the first line out. Because, of course, the muscles in the areas held for the first line. Then it all went crazy.
Yeah. It's so important that we need to get this out and into schools, as you say.
Yeah. So it's a process now. And if any schools do want to contact me with a view to putting it into their schools, absolutely. And we will just give you the timeline as to when we can do it, you know. And I think every school would want the concept proven. You know.
Yeah, and the teachers themselves using that as well.
Starting within the next, 6 months, we'll be working with schools, and
that's brilliant.
It's really exciting. It really is. We're closer than I've ever been. As I say, it's been a very frustrating 15 years. You know, I've spoken to the Department of Health and the Education Department on a number of occasions, and we're finally, I think, at a point where they know they need to do something, and because outcomes are getting worse. With all of the work that's been put into children, outcomes are actually getting worse. So,
yeah, which is scary.
It is scary. Yeah, it's like a snowball's going downhill, So, but I can put the stopper in there, and I'm just hoping that we get the chance now to do it. So,
we will.
Yeah, we will.
I really want to thank you for your time and sharing your insights with us.
I'll give the eye exercise just so as people can do it. So take anything, okay, finger, okay, and you're about there, out, and you're just trying to what? Now up to your hairline, and this looks more on camera, but I'm only going up to my hairline and down to my chin. Okay. Now, if they can't do that, even a couple of inches, okay, just a little upper bit, and see if they can watch it, okay, and then, or else do it for yourself. And then again, I'm only going outside my cheek here, okay, or across. You do it 3 times up and down, 3 times across, okay, and then diagonally. So there's 6 little units of muscle around each eye, And this is just making every single one of them work. And then 3, I'm only doing it twice because of time. 3 times up and down. And that's it. And usually a lot of kids will rub their eyes and we go, there's a connection, because the muscles have felt the tension through the brain, of actually weight, because you're weightlifting your eyeballs, basically,
And that's an exercise everybody can do to strengthen their eyes.
Absolutely. That's eye tracking. Barbara Pliletti, it's on our website, Barbara Pliletti in Italy. I did a piece on eye tracking. We'd known it for years, but they're finally coming out with this research now. And she said that eye tracking, when done often enough and for long enough, will enhance cognitive function.
Okay, so everybody can do that now for free. And even if you can't, if you're doing it yourself, watch yourself in a video.
Video yourself. Absolutely. Do put their camera up, video yourself. You'll see whether your eyes are jumping ahead or whether, you're maybe looking like that there, your fingers moving, but your eyes aren't. Yeah. Surprised the number of connotations that people can get into when trying to do that, But if you did that, it takes 30 seconds.
Brilliant.
So if you did that, it certainly would help.
Okay, I'm going to let you go. What you've shared with us is absolutely amazing. And I hope just we're all in schools and our children can benefit from this.
So it won't be for the want to try it.
No, well, we're going to have it in schools. We're going to put it out there. And if anybody wants to contact Performance Breakthrough, we'll have your link, which will have all your socials and your app link and your full program link, website link on your business profile in Localware too. And we'll have that tagged at the bottom of this interview.
I can also send you the link, Lorraine, for the child evaluation and the adult evaluation if you wish.
Yes.
So put all
the more you have, I'll put all in your business profile so everybody knows how to get you and there's no excuses.
Exactly. Just on a final point, a lot of people, are given my number to call us and they don't know where to start and think, where would I even start? And, well, she think I'm a bad parent. And, we've heard it all. I've been there. I've been that parent that shouted every single morning getting out to school, and shouting them into bed and all the rest of it. So we know exactly what you're going through. So the first question I will say to you is what's your biggest worry? What's your biggest concern? And it starts from there. What's your one main concern? And it starts. So it doesn't matter whether you say he can't eat the same as everybody else, or he can't sleep, or he's getting into trouble, or he's about to get expelled. It doesn't matter what it is. So don't be afraid to lift the phone. Okay, we're totally non-judgmental, because seriously, I thought I was going to end up in A&E most mornings.
We need to just take action.
Take action. Yeah, absolutely. Well done. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much for being with us and teaching us so much. And I thank everybody, and we'll see you next time at Localware too.